Hello, listeners, and welcome back to the Dear Forest podcast. Firstly, I'd like to apologize to you. I have been missing in action for about 2 weeks now. I got really sick, and so my voice didn't sound as great, let's say. But I am back, and I've got a couple more episodes for you. So, on today's episode, I will be having a conversation with Keng, who is a data editor at the Pulitzer Center, and one of the fellowships he supports is working on tropical rainforests. So, this episode was originally supposed to be released quite a while ago. It was supposed to be the fourth episode in the podcast, but I really struggled to find somebody that could speak very broadly on the topic of AI and tech and its impact on deforestation. And you'll hear in the episode more about the good and the bad things about this, because I think it's important to explore both topics. But I won't spoil it for you any more than that. And yeah, I hope you find this conversation very interesting. And I will see you next week with the next episode. Okay, let's get started. Can you tell us your name, where you work, and what you do for work?
Hi, I am Keng. You can call me King. I am the data editor at the Pulitzer Center, which is a nonprofit organization based in the US, but I actually based in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. So one of the main responsibilities in my job is that I support journalists to do investigations on environmental issues, especially in three regions, tropical rainforest region, which are the Amazon, the Congo Basin, and also Southeast Asia.
Okay, yeah, that's really great, super interesting. It took me forever to find you, actually. Yeah, I tried to arrange things well ahead of time, and this episode was scheduled for I think a month ago already, and I really struggled to
Wow.
find somebody in this topic specifically because it's super niche. I think it's not something that a lot of people are talking about at the moment. But yeah, let's start with the basics.
Mhm.
What is AI or artificial intelligence, and how long has it really been around?
So it's interesting that, now everyone is talking about AI or artificial intelligence.
Hmm.
But, people kind of mix it up with many different technologies, which is actually quite true. AI refers to a group of technologies, right? So it is not just, one single kind of tool, but, a lot of things can be considered AI. So I'll just give a very short history of AI. The term was first coined in the 50s, right, by scientists. And why they use the word artificial intelligence, it is supposed to mimic the capabilities of human. So the human intelligence, right? What human can do can also be done by the technology. So, that's why the term artificial intelligence.
Hmm.
And I think it became popular two times before the ChatGPT launched in 2022. The first time was in the 1997, the 90s, when, we call it an algorithm, which is a program
Yeah.
that can play chess, right? So the program is called Deep Blue. It defeated the world champion in chess competition. So that was the time, people realized that, wow, computer can beat human in terms of, but that is only for the chess competition.
Okay.
Then about after 10 years, 2016, of course, then, we heard about the Google's DeepMind, which is a program designed to play the Go game, right? The DeepMind's the program is specifically called AlphaGo. So AlphaGo again defeated, the Go champion, I think it's a Korean, right, in the Go World Championship. So that again make headlines, because then, wow, now we have a robot or a program that is smarter than human when it comes to playing Go game.
Yeah.
Then, of course, it became, everyone's tool after the launch of ChatGPT in 2022, right? So, if we look at the history, right, artificial intelligence, AI, is not something that's very recent. It has been going on for a long time, and only now, it becomes something that everyone can have access to, thanks to ChatGPT. Yep.
Yeah, it's become a lot more mainstream, and I will say I didn't know any of what you just spoke about. I had no idea either. Um, yeah, so that's really, really interesting to hear about. But yeah, you mentioned ChatGPT, but can you offer maybe some other examples of AI other than the chatbots we all know and love?
Oh yeah, of course. So actually AI is, as I mentioned just now, it's a group of technologies, right?
Hmm.
Many technologies can be considered as AI. So for example, we use a lot of online translation, right? We use Google Translation, we use DeepL, right? And those are actually part of artificial intelligence because they use a technology called NLP, which stands for natural language processing,
Hmm.
which is a type of AI technology, right, that can understand human language. So when you are doing translation, the translation is not just word by word translation, but it is able to capture the context of the whole sentence, sometimes the whole article, and translate it into another language, and with the full context, right, using the right word for the translation. So that's translation, and I mean, a lot of us has been using it for quite some time. And the one technology that everyone is using every day without realizing is actually face recognition.
Yeah.
So when you're using you're using a smartphone, you unlock your smartphone with your face, right?
Hmm.
And so you might want to ask, how come the phone is able to recognize my face? Because it used artificial intelligence, right? And you just have to take a few, I think when you first set it up, you take a few photos of your face.
Yeah, it's a video 360.
Yeah, but after that, even if you are getting fatter or thinner, you'll still be able to unlock your phone, right?
Yeah.
You don't need to have the same face, the same expressions, right? Yeah, that
Hmm.
is artificial intelligence. And there are many other, right? When you watch Netflix will try to recommend you with new dramas or films, right? Based on what? Based on your previous um your history of watching, right?
Hmm.
So how do they figure out what you like and what you dislike? Yes, it involves artificial intelligence against to do the recommendations, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so there are a lot of users.
Yeah, that's true. I honestly didn't even think of those things as AI, but yeah, now that you're explaining it, I'm like, obviously, you know. So, yeah, that's definitely super, super interesting. So, yeah, so AI obviously has a massive capacity for good. It's given us a lot of things, especially also when it comes to forests. Can you maybe briefly go into the positive impacts of AI on, yeah, our forests?
First, well, I think I can use one example, a project that my organization or my team has worked on. We call the product called Amazon Mining Watch. You can Google and you will find a website and you can access it. It's free. So what we did with this project is that we use one technology, AI technology. It's called machine learning. I'm not going to go into details of what is machine learning,
Hmm.
but basically, what happened is that we this platform allowed us to detect mining activities, especially gold mining in forests. Okay, so what we did is that we train or we teach a robot, right, a AI robot, to recognize mining areas and forest areas. So how do we teach or train a model is that we have, let's say we have 100 satellite images, right? The satellite images will show that, this is a forest and then there's a mine in the forest because, if you are doing mining in the forest, it has a very unique features. you will see a pool of wastewater, right? And you can see, the forest has been cleared. So it
Mm-hmm.
is not natural. It's different from rivers. It's different from, the kind of natural features, right? So let's say we give 100 images to the robot, and we tell the robot, right, this image is a forest. This is not a forest. This is a mine. This is not a mine. So after that, the robot will be able to recognize, because it has AI capabilities. It is able to recognize, okay, mine from forest and from any other features. Then we feed the robot with all the satellite imagery of the whole Amazon forest. Amazon is huge, right?
Yeah.
And there's no way we are able to visit every corner in the Amazon to find out whether there are any mining activities going on. And some of these mining activities, of course, are illegal, right? So we fit this satellite imagery, the whole Amazon, to this robot or the model, and the model will tell us, okay, where are the mines? So using this technology, right, we are able to monitor the emergence of new mining activities in the forest, even without visiting the exact location, right? So that helped us to make sure that we are able to detect illegal activities in the forest. So the same technology can be used to detect not just mining activities. We also use the same technology to detect airstrips in the middle of forest. So why are they airstrips in the middle of forest? Because people mine illegal gold and or any minerals, and they have to transport the minerals out of the forest. And to
Okay.
do that, they build a very small airport, right? It's not really an airport, but we call it an airstrip, right? It's like a straight path for the very small plane to land. So we use the same technology. We are able to detect, where are these small airstrips, and then using this information, journalists can investigate what is happening, right? Are these airstrips legal or illegal?
Mm-hmm.
And are these airstrips located in protected areas, right? And the government, the enforcement agencies, they can use this information to do their own investigations as well, right? So this is one AI technology. We call it computer vision, which means that you train the AI to read or to recognize images, right? And then you can do with a lot of things, right? So the same technology can be used to detect, for example, palm oil plantation in the forest. It can be used to detect, rare earth mining. It can be used to detect pollutions in the forest. There are many, many different purposes, right?
Yeah.
So this is just one example of using AI to, protect our forests.
Yeah. So I think yeah, there's lots of softwares that you can use to kind of there's also ones that you can use to see how much forest we've lost, and you can go back in time to see how much forest there was in an area like a couple of years ago versus today. So I think there's
Yeah.
many, many examples of exactly what you're talking about. So lots of capacity for good.
Maybe I can add one more example. Is very interesting in my country, Malaysia. The forestry department, they one of their main responsibilities is to protect the forest, right?
Hmm.
So they install microphones in the forest. Okay.
Oh.
Yes. The microphone will pick up sounds from the forest, right? And the sounds will be fed through not Wi-Fi, but cloud connection, okay, to their computers.
Hmm.
So and then they use AI to monitor the sounds of the forest. So what happened? They are looking for what? They are looking for example, noise from chainsaw, noise from vehicles,
Hmm.
and sometimes even like human voices, right?
Okay.
Or gunshots. So can you imagine like why are they, monitoring the sound in the forest?
Yeah, obviously because it's a very discreet way to catch people as well because they probably get them to blend in very well in the forest as well. It's not like it's going to be this massive thing sticking out of a tree. Um,
Yeah.
So they're small and they can, yeah, capture a lot of information. So that's really
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, yeah. They can capture not just human activities in forests, right? Probably those are like illegal activities. They can also capture the sound from wildlife.
Okay.
Yeah, so that will help them to know that, oh, maybe these animals pass by here, and that will help with their conservation efforts as well. But at the same time, the most unique sounds, probably is human voices, right? If you
Hmm.
detect human voices, in the forest, and so they use AI to monitor and to send the alert to the rangers. The rangers don't have to listen to the audio 24/7, but everything is monitored, by the technology, by AI. And once they sense, so the AI is able to recognize different kinds of sounds.
Yeah.
So once they sense that, this is a sound of a gunshot or maybe a vehicle, then it will send an alert to the rangers. Then the rangers will know that, okay, there shouldn't be any human there because it's a protected areas. So if there are humans, then something must be wrong, so that they are able to, go and check it out, right? Yeah.
Yeah, to go and respond. But yeah, that's really really cool. I didn't know about that. I'll definitely add links to some of the things you've spoken about in the description. But yeah, I think when I was doing my research as well, I found an overwhelming amount of information about how positive AI has been for the protection of our forests. But I'm also very aware that AI also negatively impacts our forests and also the indigenous inhabitants of forests as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, especially if you talk about water usage and like clearing the space for data camps. So maybe you can delve a little bit into that.
Yeah, so in order to use AI basically we need two so-called raw materials for AI. One is data, and second is computing power. You need to have a lot of computing power to process the data and to come up with answer. Every time when you ask ChatGPT something, ChatGPT will use some computing power, look at the data, and give you an answer, right? So this computing power is actually the electricity that we are using every day, right?
Yeah.
So the more people use AI means that the more power needed to keep the AI going. And these facilities are called data centers, right? Data centers, basically is huge super computer that can process a lot of data, and they are used to power AI, including the chat gpt that people are using. And this data hours, right, in order for data hours to work, they need two very important raw material. One is water, and the second is electricity. So just give you, a overall usage of electricity of data center, right? For example, like now we have more than 7,000 data centers worldwide. This is according to a Bloomberg report, 7,000. And it's still, we are still building more data centers because we need to use more data AI in our daily lives. And the total power used by them is bigger than the power used by country like Australia or Italy.
Wow.
Yeah. So the power used by all these data centers can power up a whole Australia or Italy, right?
Mhm.
And remember that this is still going up, right? It keeps going up.
Yeah, and how big is big when you say data centers are huge? Like, can you maybe give like a size wise, like a range? I don't know if you have an idea.
So, like, if you look at the biggest data center, we call it a hyperscale data center.
Hmm.
It probably, the size probably looks like, it's almost like, I can't say it like exactly the same, but it's like maybe two football fields.
Hi guys, just a little post-production fact checking from Keng. So, the size of a hyperscale data center is actually much bigger than two football fields. And the two football fields actually better describe a typical small or medium sized data center. A hyperscale data center, which is the biggest data centers that we have at the moment, those can be as big as about 75 football fields. I couldn't really conceptualize the size per se, so I did a little bit of calculations, and it's about zero point 0.5 square kilometers. And the closest thing that I could conceptualize was 5 times as big as King International Airport, which is in Durban, South Africa. And it's an airport that I've been in a couple of times, and it's really tough to navigate. So, yeah, you can maybe look up what the equivalent is of zero point 0.5 kilometers squared for yourself, for something that you maybe recognize better. But yeah, safe to say it's pretty big. Sorry for the interruption, and you can get back to the episode now.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah, yeah,
that's a
right.
lot.
So that's the size, yeah.
And it's
But
just
no, so
computer after computer after computer, rows and rows and rows.
yeah, rows and rows of what we call servers, and basically are just computers, that process a lot of data. Yeah, so the electric city is something, that is putting stress to a lot of cities and towns that are building data centers
Hmm.
because, some cities, they don't have they already how we call power stress. So they are having problem to power up enough household, right, residential areas. But
Hmm.
now you have data centers in those areas, and they are using up, more and more power, right? And again, to think about that is that, if they need power, how do we generate our power? So we have to build more power plants, right, to generate powers. And that leads to another problem. How much
Hmm.
of our power is green energy or renewable energy, right? So if we some in some countries, if they are not able to build enough renewable energy for the data centers, they would opt for the easiest and a conventional way of generating power, which is to use gas and coal, right?
Yeah.
And of course, we know that these are bad for the environment because they emit a lot of greenhouse gases, right? Carbon dioxide, right?
Hmm.
And that contributes to climate change, right? So data center is actually driving a lot more constructions of power plants, and not all these powers are green energy.
Yeah.
And so even if, right, so that's another side of it is even if these are green energy, for example, wind turbine, solar panel, or hydropower, right? These constructions also have environmental impacts. Okay, if you are building hydropowers dams, right, you will have to flood a huge area. Even if you are using a lot more solar panels or wind turbines, you have to use rare earth, which is another, environmental issues, right? Rare earth is the elements, that you have to mine.
Yeah.
And a lot of these rare earths, mining are happening in the global south, where they have, much less strict environmental laws and regulations, and that leads to a lot of environmental impacts, pollutions, and things like that, right? So this is just the electricity. We haven't talked about the water.
Yeah, exactly. We're not even to the crux of it. Because not everybody in the world even has access to consistent and reliable electricity.
Exactly.
And now the electricity is being diverted towards, yeah, somebody generating a three-legged monster or something. So, yeah, it's really devastating, I think, just for people in general that there's just so many like issues that we have. And yeah, the priorities kind of being given to yeah, to data centers and as well in the places where they're building the data centers, it's not like the local community is going to benefit from it that much because the
Mhm.
money from the data center is going to go straight to the government. And if they're not reinvesting that money, then the local community just suffers because they don't have access to electricity because it's going
Yep,
to
yep.
the data centers, and then their water will also be impacted because it's going to cooling the data centers. So
Yeah. So Water is another, like a huge issue that people are paying attention to. Water, data center has to use a lot of water to cool down their machines, their computers. So it's not just using up waters, but you have to think, after they cool down their machines, the water become warm, right? So they will have to release the water. So if you release warm water back to the river, for example, you are going to increase the temperature in the river or in the
Hmm.
lake, right? Even if you choose to cool down the water before you're releasing it, right, you are releasing heat into the environment. And which means that if you stay near a data center, your neighborhood, your community might experience warmer temperature because of all the heats coming out from the data centers, right? Yeah, that is another huge issues, and that is why some countries or some cities, now start to introduce moratorium, or sometimes they even ban any data centers, from setting up, right? But we can see now the trend is that the countries in global south,
Hmm.
they see data centers as a kind of, foreign direct investment. So for example, my country, Malaysia, it welcomes data centers. So Malaysia is going to become another hub of data centers coming from worldwide. The government see them as very good investment, but we are very worried about the environmental impacts that they will bring. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something that I'm also thinking about because I'm from Botswana and it's a very big like landmass and most of it is uninhabitable because parts of it is desert and also there's massive conservation areas as well because we have massive populations of like elephants and rhino
Mhm.
and like all kinds. But because a lot of it is desert, I think my number one worry is that there'll be data centers that they're going to start installing because next door in Namibia, they've
Mhm.
already started, right? So
Right.
and already the water is scarce in our region of the world because
Yeah.
Namibia and Botswana are both desert countries. So already there's like a water scarcity issue. And should climate change get worse, we will be one of the worst hit countries because we already don't have enough water. It's not raining often enough. We're not able to capture as much water, and the land isn't easily like permeable or anything. So it's really it's a deep
Mhm.
worry of mine. So I'm hoping that our new government, because we got a new government a couple of months ago, and
Mhm.
I hope that they're focused and paying attention to our needs. And yeah, there's other ways to get foreign direct investment, and I hope they choose not to go the route of data centers. So yeah, really worrying. But yeah, while we're still on the topic of people,
Mhm.
I would love to hear more about the impacts of, yeah, the rare earth minerals that you spoke about are in a lot of our hardware. So I would love to hear more about your thoughts in terms of how the mining aspect of like mining for technology has an impact on, yeah, people and the people that live in forests, outside of forests, and of course the forest itself.
Yeah, yeah. So because rare earth, right, is not really a rare elements, right? But it is very difficult to isolate these elements from the earth, right? Yeah, from the other mines, right? So we are talking about, you have to mine a large area to get very small quantity of rare earth elements. That's one.
Hmm.
And mining, that mining can cause pollutions if it's not managed well. And this is exactly the problems in many developing countries in the global south because they don't have very strict regulations and also enforcement in terms of the mining industries. And of course, because they are desperate, some of them are desperate for investment and job opportunities, right? So again, they welcome this, polluting industry into their countries.
Hmm.
And that is the upstream of the industry, right? It's the mining. But after you extract the minerals, you have to refine it. You have to refine it into very high purity before they can be used in our electronics. For example, our smartphones, our electric cars, and things like that. Even the solar panels that I mentioned earlier, the wind turbines, right? Computers, everything, they will have to use rare earth elements, right? So the refining of the rare earth elements will cause another problem because they will produce toxic waste and also radioactive waste. So
Hmm.
right now in my country, we have one rare earth refinery that is ongoing, and every year they produce radioactive waste. And the government has to, this is it's a huge controversial issue in Malaysia. So what happened is that, this company has to build a storage facilities to store the radioactive waste because
Hmm.
you can't release it anywhere. You just have to store it for hundreds of years. So the government now is asking the company to, ship away the radioactive waste so that they can continue to operate here. But you are not solving the problem, right? You are just
Yeah.
shifting your problem to another country.
Exporting it.
And which countries are going to accept this kind of waste? Probably the poorer countries, right? So the refining of rare earth, the processing of it, is another problem. Even if you don't live near a rare earth mines, but if you live near a rare earth processing plants, you will
Hmm.
be affected, right? And we know that this kind of high risk dangerous plants are usually located in areas where people have less negotiating power. We
Yeah.
are talking about marginalized communities, right, the rural areas, right? And these are the people that eventually will suffer if the plant is not properly managed.
Yeah.
So that is another environmental and social impact that we see, from the use of um, our devices, our technology. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's definitely something important to consider that I didn't even think about, but it's always the most marginalized communities in every country that suffer first. And as well on the global stage, it's always the most marginalized countries that will suffer first. So
Yep.
it's kind of a vicious cycle. Um, but yeah, so maybe something interesting to talk about as well would be the fact that even though we are users of AI and technology also use us to learn. So AI would not be possible without people either.
Mhm.
So I would be interested to know what you think the social impacts are from that perspective.
The social impact, we can see it already, like people are misusing AI, for
Mhm.
example, the deep fake technology
Yeah,
to create pornographic materials, right? To create misinformation, false information, right? To basically sway public opinions, right, during an elections or on some public issues, right? So we already seeing that, and we also see a lot of bias going on when we use AI to help us to make decisions. For example, there are companies that use AI to help them pick their future employees, right? To help them to filter job applications. And some you can just Google some of the media reports, already found that, using AI, because AI has some they are using the data of that we created. And our data is full of bias. It reflects our own bias, the existing bias in our society. So when we use that data to train the AI will inherent the bias and they will continue the bias. So if we use AI again to, let's say, pick job applicants, right? And you can imagine that, the existing bias that already in job application will continue. And
yeah,
sometimes even, will become worse or amplified by the use of AI. Yeah. So these are some of the impacts that we already seen, right? And of course, the bigger impacts is that, it also impacting how we learn things. So now a lot of people rely on AIs to do their work, to do basically to do the thinking for them. among a lot of students, right? They use AI to write articles, to do their thesis and things like that, right? So that is a huge challenge, to the whole education, the education world. Like, how are we going to, continue to educate our young people, inspire them, you know, um, together with the use of AI as well. Yeah, and how do we, educate them so they don't misuse this technology.
And just on that, do you think it will ever be possible to strike a balance between the two? Yeah, the technology's here to stay, the AI, the hardware, the software, all of it, it's here to stay. So, how do you think we can move forward from here?
That's a very difficult question, right? And I think I think the first step is to be aware that AI is not all positive, right? It's not as good as the AI, the tech companies, would like us to believe, right? And so that's the first step, right? And then whether we are able to strike a balance, I don't know. But I think it is important for, like program like you are doing now, right? To let people understand about, AI, can have other impacts to our society, to our environment. We have to be aware of it, right? And then we'll have to, join the debate, and they'll think about, how we can balance, the good and bad of AI. Yeah, but I again, it's something that people are working on, and a lot
Hmm.
of governments are struggling to actually find a way to regulate, this technology.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think we're still working to find a solution.
Yeah, that's definitely something I was about to ask about with like policymakers and like regulations and stuff, because the internet technically has no borders. So how then do you regulate something like, yeah, the internet, literally. AI is also a huge part of the internet. So how do you think they could go about it if they were gonna start getting on it sometime soon?
This is I think this is a big issue that probably we can spend another 2, 3 episodes to talk about it. But I'll just mention about, like, the since we talk about data centers, right? So you can see that, after we see the problems that data centers bring us, I think there are now some countries, they realize that, they will have to be more careful in building data centers. So you look at, countries like Singapore, or cities like Amsterdam, I think Amsterdam and Dublin, right? They all introduce a moratorium, right, or a ban on data centers. I think, for example, like Singapore, they had this moratorium in 2019, and to just stop all applications of new data centers. And then they lifted the moratorium in 2023, yes, 2 years ago, but with a set of stricter regulations. So if you want to come to Singapore and set up your data center, you have to fulfill, a lot of criteria, because to make sure that, we are able to be sustainable when we are building data centers. So I think this is an example of, how careful policy making and regulations, right, can help to mitigate the risk of data centers, right? So I think that the same framework has to be applied to other issues surrounding technologies and internet, right? That is a very big issue. But data centers tell us that, if the policymakers, they will have to be more deliberate, right, in thinking about, getting data centers, as foreign direct investment. Yeah.
Okay, so how can we, on an individual level, take steps to combat this in our everyday lives?
We can just stop using computers and internet and smartphones, and stop using ChatGPT. Of course, I'm just kidding. We know that, it is impossible to even reduce the use of technologies. And of course, technologies are not, all bad. So we still have to continue to use it for the benefits of humankind, right? But I think at a personal level, what we can try to do is to be aware of our, I would say, our purchasing decisions. So, for example, we don't have to change our smartphone every 2 years, right? So if you use less smartphones, which means that you use less rare earth elements that used to manufacture your smartphones, which means less mines have to be open in developing countries, and which means that less environmental impacts, right? So small decisions, right? Again, another one is like the electrical vehicles, EV, right? So I once read a report that if you want to be environmental friendly, the best way is use your car, whether it's a conventional petrol car or EV, right, as long as possible. Do not change car every year. All right. Because the more you use it, the less resources you are using, right? It doesn't mean that if I switch from my conventional car into a EV, it will be more environmental friendly, right? If you're able to prolong the use of your current devices, your current vehicles, that is actually better for the environment. Okay. And of course, if you think that you will have to change your smartphone because it's not working anymore, or your vehicles, right? Then you have to find the right way to dispose them, right? You just don't throw it somewhere, right? Try to send it to facilities where the rare earth elements or the resources in those devices can be recycled and reused. So which means again, we try to increase. So right now, for electronic waste in many countries, the recycle rate is actually very, very low. Especially we are talking about developing countries in the global south, right? It's very, very low. So how do we increase that? And that is something that all consumers or all individuals can do.
Yeah.
So this is like your individual or your personal habits, right? Of how you use things, right? But at a more higher level, I would say that you can also support your local campaigns to raise awareness about data centers, and also like you can demand for stricter regulations for data centers in your countries, right? You can join the campaign. You can even start your own campaigns, right? Small campaigns in your neighborhood, if there are a proposed data center, nearby. And of course, you can do other kind of awareness campaigns about, what is the issues about AI and the technologies, right? I think these are some of the things that we all can do, especially young people. Yeah.
Yeah. I think one thing for me as well is like if you do end up needing to purchase something, buy something secondhand or refurbished because in Belgium especially, there's like a massive, massive market for refurbished yeah, phones and laptops.
Mm.
And it's literally just as good, especially if they swap out the battery, because the thing that
Yeah.
actually makes your phone or your computer unusable is the battery. So as the battery deteriorates, your phone becomes impossible to use. But like if
Mhm.
they replace it, then it's fine. Like you can just continue to use it. And of course, newer devices, they're making it more difficult to do this. But I have a nice little old computer that can still be unscrewed open. So yeah,
Hmm.
when the battery is dying, then I'm just gonna replace it because it works fine. It connects to the internet, it does everything I need it to do, and then
Yeah,
some.
yeah.
So refurbished or secondhand is literally the best way to go. Not everything needs to be new.
Yeah, on that note, right? Actually, there's this campaign called the Rights to Repair.
Hmm.
So what they are doing is that they want the manufacturers, of these devices, right, to make the or to design the devices in a way that you're able to replace the spare parts, you are able to fix certain parts of it, and you don't have to just dispose the whole device,
Yeah.
right? Because it against some, of course, you mentioned that the battery can be replaced, right? But if there's a small part integrated in the phone that is not working, a lot of time you can't fix it. You have to change the whole phone, right? But if you're able to design it in a way that, different parts can be replaced, can be repaired, then you're able to reduce the waste, right, of all these, devices, right? But again, that also means that selling less phones, and which means that is bad for the tech companies. So this is something that again, involve, how the government deal with, all these big tech companies. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Regulation is super important. And I think also intentionally buying from brands that prioritize this from the beginning, because I think like what comes to mind is Fairphone. So
Mm.
basically the idea is that you can like fix your phone yourself even because my
Yep.
screen has been broken now for like a year and a half,
Wow.
but it's because if I want to get it replaced, it's gonna cost me 120 euros.
Wow.
I'm not gonna pay 120 euros to get my screen fixed. I can still see fine enough
Okay. Okay.
that I'm not gonna cough up that much money to like fix the screen. Absolutely not. So I think definitely when my phone stops working, I am going to move to a phone that's easy for me to repair myself because Fairphones, you can all the instructions
Mhm.
are on YouTube for you to fix your own phone.
Right.
And your phone comes with all the tools that you need, like the screws that you need to open your phone and everything. It comes with the phone when you buy it. And like if there's an upgrade, for instance, the camera, um, Apple updates their cameras all the time. And you have to buy the new phone to get your camera to update, obviously, because they change the hardware. But with Fairphones, they make it so that the hardware is interchangeable. So if there's a camera
Right.
upgrade,
Right. Right. Exactly.
you just buy the camera piece and then you swap it out, and then you can
Mhm.
send the used part back, and then they can. So it's really they're not perfect, of course. I won't say that I'm endorsing them because I don't. I don't know enough about their processes in between all of that to be like, yes, I 110% endorse this. But I think my point is that we need way more companies like this that are actually focused on the consumer at the end of the day, because I think
Yeah.
companies that design things that can't be fixed are focused only on themselves, right? So, yeah,
Yeah. And you're talking about like we have to redesign the whole ecosystem of our manufacturing industry, right?
yes.
To reduce waste, to increase reuse, to increase DIY.
hmm
If something is repairable, right? But you also have to make sure that the spare parts are easily available
Yeah.
and is affordable, right? So that it makes sense for people to switch into using this kind of products. And of course, it's not it has to be as good as the conventional devices or the products. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm trying to convince a friend of mine to get one so that I can see how it works ahead of time and see how good it is. But honestly, from everything that I've seen in terms of reviews online, like it all seems to be super positive because they're also in touch with their consumer base, right? If like
Mhm.
you're selling your phones to last a very long time, you're going to have people that are going to be your customers for like 10 years
Right.
or like longer. So they're listening to exactly what their customers want because they're in touch with them because they want to keep them and they're motivated, to like yeah, get their message spread, I guess. But yeah, I'll add a link to their website as well so that you can have a look. Maybe I've influenced you and you're looking for a new phone and you can have a look or something. But yeah. Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
the last question, which I ask every single one of my guests, is if there is one thing that you hope someone listening will take from this, if nothing else, what would it be?
I think it would be a summary of what we just talked about, right? It's be aware that AI is not all positive, right, to our societies and environment. It is not the silver bullet for all our problems.
Mhm.
And if it's not managed well, it could be a global disaster, right? And with that awareness, then we are able to make small differences in our daily lives, right? Including the decisions to replace our smartphones, to
Mhm.
buy a EV, right? Or to install a solar panel on our rooftop, right? So, yep, I hope that, when you know more about the technologies and the price that we pay behind the technologies, not just in terms of how much cash we are paying, but the environmental prices, the society impacts, right?
Mhm.
Then you're able to make a better decisions, when you are using your devices and the technologies.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect, concise message. So, yeah, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. You are the first guest outside of Belgium, so
Oh,
super exciting.
okay. Thanks for having me.